I have just learned that the CJS subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee reported a bill out that cut a substantial cut in the request for commercial crew in order for us to be able to have Americans flying on American rockets to and from the International Space Station, instead of having to rely on the Russian Soyuz, which we buy, and have buying those ever since we shut down the space shuttle at something like $60 to $70 million a passenger going up to the space station. Now, the whole idea was that since we've cooperated with the Russians in building the space station, that we would both have the means of transportation to get up there. We do have the means of transportation of getting, since we shut down the space shuttle, cargo to and from the space station. But we are in the process of a competition between several companies, especially those that have been selected in the competition by NASA, are Boeing and SpaceX, and each of those have been granted money to develop all of the redundancies and safety and escape systems in their spacecraft capsule in order to make it safe for Americans to go to and from the International Space Station. Now, I can tell you that the average American on the street, their image of our space program is one that when the space shuttle shut down in 2011, they think the space program's over, when in fact, it's really just beginning and we're going to Mars in the decade of the 2030s. Well, that's the whole point of us being able to rely on our own spacecraft and our own rockets instead of relying on the Russians. And what if this cut is sustained? And this is a cut from a request of $1.24 billion for this competition for making American rockets safe and creating the spacecraft to take Americans to the space station. It's been cut to $900 million. If that cut in the subcommittee is sustained in the full committee and ultimately in the final appropriations bill, it's going to delay us from being able to launch Americans on American rockets. Instead of 2017, just 2 years from now, it'll delay us another 4 years. That's 4 more years of relying on the Russians. Now, I know there are a bunch of senators around here that don't like the fact of the aggressiveness of Vladimir Putin. Well, this is one way to wean ourselves from having to depend on them. And final comment on this subject, Mr. President, and that is the money that supposedly is being cut, which is just a little over $300 million. We would lose that in still paying that money to the Russians to fly an additional 2 years. We need to wake up to what's happening. Senator Mikulski will be offering an amendment to the full Appropriations Committee to restore that cut, and I hope senators will understand all the nuances and support Senator Mikulski. Mr. President, I yield the floor.